will leave the nation in remembrance today when he left on long drives after a study found that car seats could cause breathing difficulties.
While they save lives in accidents, the research by the University of Bristol found the combined effects of vibrations plus the tilt of the baby seat can cause problems on journeys over 30 minutes. Leading paediatrician Professor Peter Fleming, who carried out the study, joins us from our Exeter studio. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Perhaps you could just take us through the evidence you found for your recommendation.
What we found was that when you put the baby in a car seat flat on the floor, the baby's lying at an angle of about 30 degrees. And we found that most babies, whether they're preterm or term babies, cope with that quite well. But when you put a rear-facing car seat in the car, it's tipped up much more vertically to between 40 and 45 degrees, which is really important because that's how the seat works. It has to be fairly upright in order to make sure that the baby is secure in the event of a crash. But also when the car's going along, the car seat is being vibrated. So what we did was to simulate, using a simulator, the movement that a car seat would experience in a car travelling in a straight line at 30 miles an hour. So very, very gentle vibration. And to our surprise, quite a lot of babies started having episodes of dropping their blood oxygen saturation and minor difficulties with breathing, and indeed on occasions their heads would flop forward and we would need to actually intervene to help them. This is a combination of being more vertical and the vibration. We're not quite sure whether it's the vertical position or the vibration that's the most important in those, because both seem to have an effect. But the net effect is that within relatively short periods of time, quite a lot of babies started showing signs of minor difficulties. This isn't life-threatening in the studies we did, but obviously if they go on for longer, this could be more of an issue. Now, I have to emphasise, car seats are essential. Nobody should ever take a baby in a car except in a properly constructed car seat. They're a legal requirement for very good reasons. They've saved many, many lives. But the important thing here is that car seats are designed for journeys, not for long periods of time. Many parents started to use car seats as an alternative to a cot or a carry cot or a Moses basket, and leaving them in there for a long time. So two things really. We're recommending that in the first few weeks after birth, it's a good idea to try and keep car journeys to a minimum, to try and avoid longer journeys over about 30 minutes or so if you can. If you do need to make longer journeys, then it's probably a good idea to have an adult sitting in the back of the car alongside the baby so they can keep an eye on the baby and make sure they don't get into any difficulty.
Professor, can I just ask you, that many people who've had children previously, who've got young children now, babies, we're very interested in your research, but asking a lot of questions. For example, is there evidence from case studies, other than research you did yourself, of babies being harmed in that situation? Because many people will have done this with their very young children. They will have done long journeys. So is there evidence of babies having been harmed in some way?
Well, what we know is that in the big studies that we've conducted looking at sudden unexpected deaths of babies, a proportion of those happen in car seats. What we don't know is whether they happen because they were going to happen anyway, or whether the car seat had any role in that at all. We just don't know. Although we've done the largest studies anywhere to look at that, it's very difficult to unpick that. So we went the other way, which is to try and look at the car seat and say, can we predict any possible effects from a car seat? And we were rather surprised at the frequency with which these drops in blood oxygen saturation occurred when we put the car seat, if you like, in this simulated drive. And we were very surprised that the manufacturers have never done this before. Nobody has ever conducted a study of babies actually in a car seat in a simulated drive before.
Yes. Could I ask you about
a lot more research?
Forgive me for interrupting. Could I just ask you about the manufacturers? I mean, you describe very accurately, and people will be familiar with the shape of those seats. What alternative is there to the shape of seat for a very tiny baby?
Well, as I say, at the moment we don't know whether it's the angle of the seat or the vibration that is the thing that's contributing. Both seem to have an effect. Some of the seats that are now being manufactured and produced, the baby is less vertical, and certainly that might well be a helpful thing. We don't actually know enough to be able to answer that. Really what I'm trying to say is that car seats are essential in terms of saving lives in the event of a crash. One's got to be really clear. Nobody should ever take a baby in a car in any other form of support other than a properly designed baby carrier designed for cars. But what we don't know is how long it's safe to leave babies in those and what the effects are on the baby of longer journeys. Our prediction from our studies is that the frequency of getting into difficulty is likely to go up after about a half an hour, but we don't have enough data to be able to be certain. And as a safety precaution, we're just saying, just think about your journeys and don't assume that it's perfectly safe to make very long journeys with very young babies in the way you would with a much older child.
Professor Fleming, thank you very much for your time this morning. That's Professor Peter Fleming, consultant paediatrician.
It's 17 minutes past 7. It's time to talk to Matt, find out what's happening.